what are you excited about with this year with all of these planets changing? Is this like an epochal change in your opinion?
Yes.
Yes.
Um, so I think, yeah, so it's worth being with this idea of confusion for a little while, because it's such a major epochal shift. We are moving from historical era to historical era, and as such, then so you mentioned Uranus changes signs every 7 years or so, and Neptune changes every 14 years or so, and Pluto changes, but this time it's going to be like 20 years, and all of that is changing and is going to take a while to get used to, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like we've been doing Neptune in Pisces for like 14 years, right? Probably don't remember what Neptune in what's the sign before Pisces? Aquarius was like. You probably don't remember what that was like. Even if you were alive and could be like had an adult memory at that time, like who knows what was going, how I felt, what the
I was
wellspring
like
of
a
dreams was like
teenager.
14
Yeah.
years ago,
Yeah.
17 years ago. You know what I mean? Like just no real memory of that, right?
Mhm.
And so it takes a while to get used to. But then there's also the idea of we are now in the age of air, where
Mhm.
before we had been in the age of earth. And I've probably explained this on this podcast before,
Yeah.
but this is Jupiter and Saturn make conjunctions in signs of the same triplicity or element for a period of 200 years or so. And so we just moved from the period where they were making those conjunctions in earth signs into a period where we're making those conjunctions in air signs. Those eras are 200 years long each. And
Wow.
so,
Yeah.
even though this last conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn that really brought us into the era of air already happened in what was that? That was late, it was December 2020, I think, right? So,
Yeah.
already we're 4 years past that, but 4 years ain't shit when it comes to 200, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're still at the very beginning. We're not used to it yet. And
Right.
Hmm.
so what we're moving into, and this is super noticeable if you like stop thinking about astrology and math and all that stuff for a second, but just like think about where we actually are in time, then
Yeah.
like culturally, historically, then we've got the we're in the era of deep fakes, right? No one knows what to do with AI and technology, and as far as that stuff is concerned, it's the wild wild west out here. We don't have
Yeah.
any real regulations about that. There's no real rules that anyone knows yet because no one knows the landscape, right? And so what we see here is moving into a new historical era where we don't know what it looks like, and so we're just trying it. We're
Yeah.
just trying stuff out, and the nature of that is to be confused, right? If
Mm.
your whole principle is fuck around and find out, then you got to do some fucking around before you can understand what the rules of this situation are, like how this place, how this time and space are the same thing, how this space is shaped, and therefore how to work with oneself in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're in this transition period, and the year
Hmm.
2025 is another of those years where there's like a lot of transitions happening. Um,
Right. And so we don't land in
yeah, we don't know.
2025.
Right.
We're not in a place where we're like, okay, got it now.
Mm.
But by the end of 2025, that's not happening. So
Yeah.
even though this major shift is happening, what we're like, the main thing is the shift.
Yeah.
Like the change is what's happening right
Yeah.
now. And so we're
Gotcha.
not going to say again.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay. Yeah. So we're not going to get to a place where we're like sure about what's happening. What we're doing now is changing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Right.
so, one of the things on an emotional level that I think is really important, I was talking about like doom and gloom before. Change is scary and hard for people. And by
Yeah.
people, I mean humans. I mean all of us, myself included, right? Change is a difficult thing to do. I have been in situations, for example, where I had to do a breakup that I knew I was in a relationship that I knew wasn't it, and I had to do a breakup, and I cried for months about that shit. It was
Yeah.
so difficult and terrible. And I knew that the change was good, but I hated it anyway.
Yeah.
And so and I find this in people in general and dogs and like just in
Mm.
general, we tend to prefer a kind of stability. We want stuff to work out in the same way that it already has, even if that sucks. And so to be in a moment of change does feel terrifying, does feel like, we can think about death as a kind of transition. So it feels kind of deathly, right? It feels like there's a kind of darkness if we think about, like being in a landscape where you're unfamiliar, it's a little bit like being in the dark in the woods, right? Not sure what's out there, and there's a lot of fear of the dark. Like, I don't know what's out there, and because I don't know what's out there, then I can imagine lots of terrible things that could possibly be happening, and I have no verification for any of that, but I have freaked myself out now, you know?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so that's part of where we are in the landscape. And so when we think about like the feelings that come up and all of the doom and gloom that shows up in forecasting, not only in like astrological, magical, spiritual forecasting, but also political forecasting and all of that sort of stuff, then there's a lot of doom that shows up in that space. And it's not because we're all going to die, it's because we have a fear of the dark.
Hmm.
The good news is that the dark is actually navigable. We can figure it out. And by the end of this 7, 14, 20, 200-year cycle, then we will have shed some light on what's going on. We will be better at navigating this terrain. We are
Mhm.
currently not good at it, but this is an opportunity to upskill.